out she's just socially awkward. We've gotten to the bottom of it. Hi guys, welcome back to our segment called Where Are They Now? Which I still don't have a jingle for. I realize it every time I say that I don't have a jingle. You should get on that. I'm joined today by Lumos. He's here as we're going to read some really exciting updates. He was personally involved in most of these cases as my helper dog. He's wearing a muzzle right now because we just filmed a really stellar muzzle conditioning video. So you should go check that out after you watch this. Basically, we've got a couple emails and one Instagram message that we're going to revisit. First one is for a dog named Louie. He is a Portuguese water dog, and he was adopted by this family, and he was a hot mess. To their own admission, they were like, we were just like on the verge of getting rid of this dog. Like they could not, he was so reactive. Just having a really hard time with life. He was struggling. He was not doing great. We did training. It's been quite some time. At least a year, I would say. And she just sent me a video of him swimming in a lake. We're going to overlay it here. And she said, Michelle, we hope you're having a great summer. Louie is having a blast at the lake this summer himself. As always, we are so grateful for your training. Short, quick, to the point. I love it. I just love these updates. They really make my day. So Louie's doing awesome. We also have an update from a client who I'm actually currently working with. But this was a really cool mid-program update because they had an unfortunate emergency. They think she ate some kind of like mushroom in the back, something weird like that, and had to go to the emergency vet and get some testing done, blood work, all of that kind of stuff. And this dog has aggression issues. She's very moody. She wants what she wants and she wants it done her way, and she doesn't like when people tell her what to do. She's a boss lady, and she was even aggressive towards her own family. Like they were struggling for a really long time. Went through a lot of different trainers, didn't see any success with most things. And then she just sent me this video and she said, hey, Dakota had to go to the ER yesterday. Luckily, I actually work there, so they all know how she is, LOL. She ended up getting into mushroom in the backyard, they think. They had to do blood work, take x-rays, give meds. They told me she was perfect and very easy to work with. She even sat next to me while I waited to pay while other dogs and people were walking past her. Her confidence has strengthened so much. She's doing okay now. I just couldn't believe how well she did with them in the back. She did have her muzzle on just in case. We love that. We love that. Excuse you.
He loves that.
He does. He was adding his 2 cents. That was fantastic. Very happy about that update. We also have, let me see here. All right. Our next one, this is a client, Brutus, that I was trying to think about when they did training, and it has been a really, really long time. Maybe even a couple years. This German Shepherd was extremely reactive and nervous and fearful, and he would like charge at people that he was uncomfortable with, was not like very territorial, not good with people in close proximity, anything like that. These clients were awesome. They did a phenomenal job, and they just sent me a couple pictures, and they said, just to spontaneously update you on old Brutus, we decided to try to take him to my parents' house for a day, and he was such a gentleman. I cannot thank you enough for the work you put in with him. And that was pretty awesome. So the pictures are adorable. You guys will get to see those. And fear cases are probably one of the most rewarding things to see transform, because to think that this dog would have, I mean, could have never been put in a situation like this prior to doing training. And now his world is just so much bigger, and he can actually enjoy the benefits of like being able to go places and interact with people and actually have a normal existence for a dog instead of living a very confined, small bubble type lifestyle. And to know that we were able to have a piece of that, a part in it, is awesome. It's a blessing. So those are our updates for today. Thanks for your help, Lumos. You contributed a lot. It was great having you here. And they're going to keep pouring in. So you guys are going to keep hearing about them. But thanks for joining us. Bye. Bye. See ya. Okay. Go.
Hi, sweetie. All right. How have things been going? Good? Okay. This is Paige, our social media manager. So she's going to film a little bit of our session today.
Okay.
So we're gonna go over same thing, kind of how we did last session, just going over some of that, like greetings and everything. We're gonna go back over to the facility where we were before, and just do the same thing, just knocking on the door, coming in, trying to shake your hand, and working on that reactivity. We're gonna go ahead and put her like in a down. Perfect, cool. And then same thing, I'm gonna go out, pound on the door. If she gets up from that, give her a correction, put her back down. I'm gonna walk in. As long as she's down, that's when I'm gonna come up, all right? Same thing, come up, just shake your hand, we'll go from there. If you want, I would say like, get next to her or something so that way you can have an eye on her. Because I really, with her being in that down, I really wanna be on top of like that timing with that correction. So again, the second those elbows start coming up, with that anticipation of standing up, breaking that command, I want to give that correction and get her back down, right? Perfect. And so just keep an eye on her. Perfect.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Nice job, Brandy.
Girl.
All right, we'll give her a second. Let her calm down. And we'll try it again.
Good job.
Now if you want, I mean, that was really good. I mean, compared to a couple of repetitions last time. And again, and growling, all that stuff is fine, right? And this is something that obviously you're not doing this with every person, you know, but it's good to be able to do it, you know, with the one friend that's really like wants to come and say hi and give big hugs and stuff. It's good to have that control for her.
Good job.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want, you can give her some loving. Yeah, just keep an eye on her. Perfect.
Hey there.
Good to see you.
Hey, nice to
Good to
see
see you, Brandy.
Good job, Brandy. Yeah.
Nice job. Just kind of walk around a little bit. Perfect. Go ahead and release her.
Okay, Brandy, come.
There you go. Good job. Now I'm going to go ahead and just kind of recall her too from you. If you don't mind just having the remote. Perfect. And yeah, and if possible, you know, if you have a friend coming over or whatever, or a neighbor coming over to say hi, try to get in that down position, obviously a more stable position. You'd be easier with your timing to give that correction. It also gives her a little bit more of that control. If it's something where you're just walking down the street and that neighbor comes running down or whatever, right? Just keep her in that position and do your best to kind of just control that. Obviously just letting them know like, hey, just let me like go and put her down real quick or something, especially if you don't have the muzzle on, right? If you don't have the muzzle on, probably just be like, yeah, exactly. Brandy, come. Yeah, you can just let jump in. Come. Good girl. I know. He's okay. Good job. Do you remember me at all? Okay. She's like, all right. I'm just gonna do it one more time. Brandy, come. I know. I don't think I've ever heard that noise before. Good job. Down. Good. And it's good that even with this like anxiety and the growling and stuff, she's listening like that. You know, like there's no hesitation. I mean, there's a little slowness to it, but she's not needing any correction. She knows she's following through with these commands and stuff, even with this kind of like, I hate you kind of thing. But, which is totally fine, you know. But it's good that we've been able to get to a point where we can generalize this command, where it's something that, I mean, obviously I was working with her too, but that there are multiple people that can still have that control, right? So that means like going to the vets and stuff like that, going to the groomers if you ever need to or whatever, right? They can still have those controls or those commands to be able to control it. Okay. Have you done a lot of walks and stuff with her recently?
Yes.
And how are those going?
Great.
Yeah.
It was a little different on the beach because it wasn't like the definition. So like, where is the definition? But as
Yeah.
soon as we were back on the sidewalk, it was like
Perfect.
No question there at all.
Cool.
So that was good.
She's been good with a lot of different distractions too, with the people and the dogs. And
Like I was super impressed just being on vacation. So like a couple of other people in the house, she was good. I think she growled one time when somebody walked past her bed. That was it. And she was perfectly comfortable. We just kept her kind of arm's length away from everybody. And
Yeah.
She was fine. She was either in, or I couldn't get to them, or she was in like a foldable crate. So she was fine. She didn't growl. She didn't have any issues.
awesome.
She growled when they came into the pool, and as soon as I put her down, she stopped. She left them alone. They did their thing, and when they left, she was quiet. So that was good.
Awesome.
So yeah, so it was good.
Yeah, that was, I think, a really good test for her. And I know we had kind of talked about that and everything. And it's good that, I mean, that little success goes, I mean, it's a big success, but it's going to go a really long way for, in terms of you're not always going to be able to have that much stuff going on all at once. So to be able to kind of work on it, and not only good practice for her, but good practice for you, where it's something that we'll be able to kind of continue working on that. I want to do that one more time. Same thing, just in the downs and everything. And if you want, you can just kind of come over here. Still keeping it pretty mellow. I mean, just because, again, it's something where I don't really have a need to over-exaggerate this stuff right now, right? I don't need to come in here and do a cartwheel and, like make it way more than it has to be. Because it's just something, if we can have this success, that's what we're looking for. I just want to try it, do it one more time, giving her a little bit more of a minute to kind of realize what's going on and make sure that this is still good. Now, I am kind of interested in this situation because she's kind of a little bit more in front of you. So again, just keep an eye on her. And we'll go and see how it does. Good to see you, Brandy. Good job. Awesome. And a little even more calm than that too. Perfect. All right, go ahead and release her. Awesome. Cool. Is there anything else specifically you wanted? This is like obviously what we wanted to go over. I just can't remember if there was anything.
I mean, that's the big thing.
Okay.
I want to keep,
Yep.
like how to, and what would I do from this point forward, right? Obviously, we could recreate this with you.
Yeah.
I can put a muzzle on and bribe somebody.
Yeah. Well, so and this is really the thing, right? This is kind of why I was like, no need to kind of over exaggerate and stuff. This is really all you need to do. Right? It is, when you can, put her in the down, and it's going to be about just working through those situations where you're gonna have different things. You're gonna have little kids, you're gonna have people coming down the driveway, and she's gonna kind of like not see them until they're there, right? And it's like they have no intention even coming up to you, but still there, right? That's why, I mean, if it's, I would recommend, at least to gain that success and continue that success, have that muzzle on when you're going on walks, especially in places that you don't really know, right? Around your neighborhood or down the street or something, totally fine. But yeah, especially if you're going to the park or something like that, down in the metro parks, have that muzzle on. That way, just worst case scenario, at least you're there, nothing's gonna happen, right? But other than that, I mean, in terms of moving forward, I want it to just be something where you have that control. If it's in the house, obviously go and put her on the bed. You know, if it's something where, or in a down, and then you can kind of walk away a little bit from her, because I do really think it's this like personal space kind of thing with you, and that's what we were seeing last time. But now that we can get to the point where she's like, she's not happy about it, but she knows she has to listen to you. Once she realizes, okay, this isn't as big of a threat as I initially thought, then my hope is that that will tend to kind of calm down. And we can kind of see that even just that last time, she got a little bit more quiet a lot quicker, right? So, you know, it's, to say this anxiety is going to completely go away is probably not true, but it's something that if I can help her out to realize that it's not as scary as she thinks it is, then it's gonna be much better, right? Much better for her, much better for you. So, so it's something that I kind of, I kind of want to just keep doing this. I don't think you need to like set up one of your friends or something, pay anyone off. But that's what I'm here for. I'm okay with being the dummy. But it's something that we just need to kind of continue that success however we can, right? So the only thing I was thinking is if you wanted to go up and walk around at Edgewater for a minute, we could do just a quick little walk around there and just see if there's any certain exposure or something that we can kind of work through. But other than that, I mean, I'm really happy with this actually. I was expecting at least one lunge because it's been a minute, but I mean, who knows? Maybe that vacation was enough for her to kind of relax a little bit too, and you know, kind of get that big exposure. So.
But she's within 5 feet of the crate.
And she darts into it.
Into the crate.
Yeah.
Is that like, I don't want to correct if she's in her crate, because I feel like she did the command wrong, but am I wrong to like make the crate then negative? Like,
so if you ask her to down, right? If she's 5 feet from the crate, if you ask her to down and then she downs and the second you walk away, she gets up and darts in there, I would correct her, yes. If it's something where you don't really mind and you're asking her down and she's like, well, if I'm gonna down, I wanna go in there. Yep, that's totally fine, right? It's that initial down once you say it, and that's kind of like the send home, like, I don't care where we're in proximity, like they down to me, right? But it's something that when I ask you to down, I need you to down, right? And because the only concern with that is if she's resource guarding the crate when she gets in there, right? Now, I'm sure she's not doing it with you, but it would be something that would be the only thing that if you're someone over and she darts in and then the second she gets in there, you're like, someone's walking by or whatever and she starts growling at him or whatever, right? That would be my only concern. But as long as she's doesn't down first, break it to go into the crate, that would be the only reason I would correct it.
If she finds that as her down, that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I left that because I was like, okay, it seems like it should be, but I wasn't sure. I just wanted to.
And then you know, if she does go down, you give that correction because she breaks it and runs into her crate. Obviously, get her back out and then try to get her back in that general position, right? And that could be something that you could just work on, you know? Just have that leash on, put her down in the living room. When she darts in there, right, give her that correction, bring her back out, put her down again, right? So that way at least you have the leash to kind of like help guide her out. You're not making it stressful, bringing her out, whatever, having to grab her collar and stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, that's a good question. That was a great follow-up. I think that was super successful. I would probably want to do one more, but I want to maybe wait like a little bit longer if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Just because I want it to be something where we could maybe see if more time gets her kind of reset or whatever, you know what I mean? I want to make sure that we can go longer with her still having that good control, right? And it'll give you enough time too to kind of like have those situations, have people over or whatever, and kind of work through certain things. Obviously though, you always have a way of getting a hold of me. If you need anything, if you're like, hey, I know we were saying this day, but I kind of want to do it sooner, just let me know. We can just make another one and still keep that one, whatever, you know? Today we did a session with a dog named Brandy, and she came in here like a dog that we worked with in the past, Emmeline, with some resource guarding issues with their owner, and in terms of mostly getting really reactive as people came up to greet them. And so today what we worked on and what we've been working on these last couple follow-ups with Brandy and her mom is coming in, knocking on the door and working first and foremost at that reactivity with the knocking on the door, ringing the doorbell, stuff like that. And then coming right into the place and walking up to the owner and shaking her hand. A lot of times, especially with a dog like Brandy, is you can kind of hear them growling or feel that they're tense and stuff like that even as you're approaching, but they will wait until you kind of break that like personal bubble of hers, and then that's when you get that reactivity. And with a lot of dogs, that's where you see a lot of issues, because without knowing it or without knowing the signs, you know, you think the dog's fine until you get into that personal space right where the dog can actually lunge at you, and then you get bit, right? So what we work today is putting a muzzle on Brandy and just kind of working to, one, correct for the mistake of lunging, obviously, but two, having her do enough repetitions of it to realize and to desensitize her to it that it's not as crazy or as nervous as it needs to be, right? And just having that understanding of, as long as you're in that down, nothing bad will happen. Mom will take control of the situation, and then we can go from there, right? With the repetition today, even like after doing a few, Brandy was still nervous, still anxious. She was growling a little bit, but she held that down perfectly and actually didn't break it once the whole session, which is a huge improvement from where we had started. And I'm very proud of her, but it's something that hopefully with a couple more follow-ups and what we continue to work in these next couple of weeks is going to be kind of bringing that down even more and having a little bit more of that confidence, or at least less of that, you know, growling, anxiety, kind of shaking nervousness that she was having as I was approaching her and her mom. So very proud of her, but really great session. So I'm very happy to see where this will go.
What would be the most appropriate way of doing something like this at home?
So, I mean, definitely most important thing, if you know you're having these problems with your dog at home, or you know that your dog is very protective of you, get a muzzle. I mean, definitely muzzling, at least if they do lunge or something, they're not going to be able to actually grab or nip at anyone like that. But it's also something where, you know, if you know it is a thing, obviously try to avoid certain situations, right? With whether it's little kids and stuff like that. And we talked about this in Brandy's session today. You can't control everything, right? If you take your dog to the park, right, and it's a very popular park, you have to kind of expect that anything can happen, right? An off-leash dog can come running up to you, a little kid can come running up to you, whatever, right? And it has to be something that you are putting yourself and putting your dog in the best position possible. So if it is something that it is serious, I definitely advise obviously getting help and trying to learn a little bit more for you and for your dog. But in terms of, you know, if you're just trying to do it yourself and stuff, my recommendation, getting a muzzle, working on as much of that control, but also keeping it successful in terms of, again, not putting them in situations where either they're going to harm themselves or anyone or anything else, you know. But definitely if it is to the point of kind of these dogs, it's something I would definitely recommend, you know. If it's more jumping and just kind of happy stuff, then that's a little bit easier because that's more excitement. But these dogs have reactive anxiety and fear reactivity, which one can just kind of spiral for the dog and for the owner. You know, you don't want to see your dog with that much anxiety and that much reactivity. It's really scary to see sometimes. So I definitely advise getting some professional help.
Hi guys, it's Bridget with Michael in Miracle Canine Training. We are here today to work on some of Michael's car anxiety. His mom has a long drive when she brings him up for training, and sometimes he likes to act a little ornery in the car. So we're going to take a look at his behavior and see if there's anything that we can help solve to reduce his anxiety and have him have a more comfortable car ride.
He's not as bad when I'm going fast on the highway.
Yeah.
He'll like lay down and relax at that point. But if I'm driving, especially if he like can, if I don't know if he's recognizing stuff, but if I'm driving somewhere where it's like streets like this, or it's where like there's a slower speed limit.
Yeah.
That's when he starts getting worse, because I think it's like an anticipation thing of like, I know I'm gonna be getting out of the car soon, or I know I'm going somewhere like exciting, and he like can't control himself, and he starts like vocalizing, and that's when he starts jumping up, and he like, I don't know how he grabs onto this middle to where like I try to shove him back. He's like, it feels like I'm pressing against a brick wall. I'm like, no.
Yeah, with like really car anxiety, like you can't correct that he's anxious, but we can correct, like if you keep your e-collar up front with you, something correctable is touching the center console, because he's breaking the boundary of the hammock anyway. And if you were to get in an accident and he were up there, you know, he's going through the windshield.
Yeah.
So that's a correctable thing, and it's a little bit more clear, because then he knows, okay, if my paws touch that, I'm gonna get a firm correction. Or if they're messing with this and like start to roll the windows down, like I call this the windowsill. If they start to do that, I'll start correcting them. Some people will do like down stays in the car, but I feel like you have to be pretty practiced at a down.
Yeah.
And obviously we're not teaching that to him right now. So almost just correct the side effects that he's having.
Yeah.
Like the pacing, the touching of the car interior. It's an instability, like he feels nervous, and that's valid, and he's allowed to feel anxious. But how can we help you feel better?
And I don't want to have to be constantly cranking my head back. But as long as he's just not climbing up here where it's like legitimately dangerous for him, that's my biggest concern. Or rolling the window down while I'm driving and trying to jump out, because
I mean, Sport dealt with a lot of car anxiety when I got him, and something like David helped me with a lot was just like Spark would touch everything in the car, and he would do the rolling the window down, and then he would jump out if he had the opportunity. So I just started getting really firm on him about that, and ever since then, like, he's not perfect where he's gonna be vocal in the car, but he no longer tries to like fuck around with the interior.
That's better.
Good. I would just start, like, if you're nervous about it and you feel bad about starting to correct him, you can just do the center console to start.
Yeah.
And then take care of the windows after. But I can guarantee you, if you give him a couple crisp corrections, he's not going to do it anymore. Yeah. And that at least takes the stress of him having, like, being near you, and then you having to push him back. Good.
I think too, it'll be helpful if I have like Daniel come with me, and one of us is driving and one of us is doing it, because then I can at least like address it first that way without having to, because I am like a very nervous driver.
Sure.
I get a lot of anxiety myself in the car, so I relate to Michael on that.
Yeah.
I get the stress, Michael, but also for your safety and for my safety, we gotta just grin and bear it and get through it.
And it's not going to be as bad as you think it is. Like, it can feel daunting to have to give a firm correction, but in the long run, it's going to do so much better for both of you. And I'd rather just give him like 1 or 2 really firm corrections and have him live in the mind state that he's like super anxious and neurotic in the car. Because that's almost like worse than him just being like, oh shit, I can't do that. And you can start, like I said, just with like the console. Like, we don't have to worry about the screeching. We don't have to overwhelm him. But if you can just get on him about one thing.
Yeah.
And I also have his leash. I don't know if you do any. I secured it.
Yeah, I usually hook it around the thing like that.
Mr. Motorcycle. Good job. Yes. Make a joy from the first session. And even doing his nails, like it's not something he used to like bounce on his little trampoline and he'd be pacing and he'd get a little stressed, but this is a much calmer version because we've worked through and he knows like he can't really mess around. But I definitely get like feeling that nervousness. You do a really good job with him. I mean, like, even at like the event that we were at recently, his behavior was very good and there's a lot going on. He's not a dog like that really needs to be in a stationary position, or we don't have to be really hard on him because he's not displaying the behaviors that some other dogs would. Like, I have clients that like, their dogs cannot be around people without being in a stationary position or starting to correct for the jumping or things. So he's pretty like chill. And then I would just get in the habit of not giving him the command unless you're able to enforce it. Because yes, like he could show the stubbornness and he's not being defiant or purposely like trying to be like, F you, I'm not doing this. He's just like, you're not gonna make me, so I'm not gonna do it. And like I said before, like he's not a dog that we have to put into a down and like tell people like, don't go over to him, don't go pet him, because he's so friendly and he's so accepting of pets. And he's not like begging for food, he's not jumping on people. So we can treat things differently. There's nothing to say that he has to do X, Y, and Z if you're happy with his behavior. But just like get in the habit of like, if we do take him out to a patio and we're like, okay, I actually want you to sit, that we're able to enforce it. There are times that I go places with Sunday and I don't give her a single freaking command the entire time because she already knows what the rules are and I don't really have to like find myself enforcing them.
Hi, lady. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good. What's up, girl? This is Paige. She's gonna film our lesson if you're cool with that.
Cool, yeah.
How's she been?
She's been good.
Yeah?
Been good.
How's the beds and sits going?
They're going good. I have to admit this week, well, we met on Saturday. And
It hasn't been much time.
So yeah, I haven't had a lot of time. I only had one day to work on stuff with her.
That's
so.
fine, that's fine. I wanna do walking today.
Okay.
And then we'll try to get that done before it starts raining on us. And then we'll go in and do some socialization and actually put her in with some dogs and like see what we get.
Okay.
Do you have the e-collar?
I do, yeah.
Cool, we'll grab that and we'll put that on her and we'll go for a little walk. So with her in a sit as they go by, all I care about is if she breaks her sit. No? Sit. She can bark or even vocalize if she wants. No. No. Sit. No. Sit. Bye. Bye. See you later. Bye. Get home quick. It's getting bad out there.
Corn dog, no.
Corn dog said, it's storming. We must hurry.
Later coming.
Very good, lady.
Tornado dogs.
Right?
Come. She did really well with those dogs going out of the lobby though. So like moving forward, like for her upcoming lessons, just bring her in. Obviously, like you can come scope it out first if you want and see like if there's a lot going on in there. But you can bring her in, just take her off to the side, have her sit and just make her hold a sit the whole time she's in here.
Okay.
So that way we can start exposing her to a lot more, because I think she's ready for it.
Okay.
You know, obviously, like, now she's got her basic commands down, which is going to make it much easier to hold her accountable for how she behaves with the distractions and stuff.
Right.
I think that'll be good moving forward.
Okay.
So like I said, you're just going to ignore her. If she comes up to you, just don't even pay any attention to her. Oh, waffles. Okay. Let's see what she decides to do here. And when we socialize, we really try to like be as hands-off as possible. So I'm really only going to intervene if it becomes dangerous or that she starts to display like a dangerous behavior. But I'm not going to like force her to come out. I'm not going to do anything like that. I'm just going to let her kind of move at her own pace. A lot of times this is what happens. They're real spicy on leash when they can't get to the dog, but then you kind of like put them in that real scenario of like, okay, now you can, and they're like, what do I do? I don't know actually how to behave around another dog. Barriers and leashes can create a lot of added frustration for dogs because again, it keeps them from actually being able to engage with whatever the stimulus is. Pretty uneventful so far. That's a good thing. And her body language has been pretty neutral. When they've engaged and kind of been sniffing, like she's definitely gotten a lot more like overstimulated, but that doesn't necessarily mean like aggressive stances. A lot of pitties, like when they're excited, their stances all look the same. They get like real postury and they stiffen and stuff like that. And so you kind of have to feel them out a little bit more and read the overwhelming surrounding context cues to kind of see what you have going on otherwise. While they walk through, we'll just do our sit again to keep her into her sit position.
Just her not barking and going ballistic is kind of like blowing my mind.
Yeah. That's what I said. A lot of times they're real flashy. It's kind of like the guy at the bar that like, hold me back, you know, but then when somebody actually wants to fight him, he's like, oh, never mind. I didn't actually want to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
And all the sand was like all in the air.
Oh, yeah. Soya. And even that, like her putting her paws up on him and stuff, like she's just trying to figure it out, you know? Like what am I supposed to do? How do I engage with the dog? All that kind of stuff. So really, we found out she's just socially awkward. That's we've gotten to the bottom of it. She said, I don't know what to do. She said, well, you're new.
But her tail looks like
Oh, sorry, Ushi. this tail is a tail that, depending, can go one way or the other. That tail can be excited, happy, want to play tail, and it could also be a tail that is indicating the dog is like very, very overstimulated, over-aroused, and could be on the verge of doing something aggressive as well. So the wagging is less about friendly and more about energy. And so it's how it's wagging and any other body language cues overall that you're kind of going to use to determine what the intention is behind it. So it's high, which she's very overstimulated, a little over-aroused, but it is a little bit more of a wide wag, which typically, every dog can be individual, but typically that would indicate that she's just interested and curious and trying to figure it out. When it starts to get more like stiff like that and do like more of a rattlesnake type motion, that's when it's a little bit more like, okay, let's watch this real closely and kind of see where this is going to go type of thing. But again, every dog is so individual that it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all with body language stuff. You kind of have to observe them, you know, individually for a while. No. And to be able to tell exactly what their intentions are behind things. That's why the muzzles are such a great tool, because it allows us to let her really immerse herself in it unfettered and be able to actually see like her true behaviors come out a little bit more without having to worry about interfering when it's a moment where I'm like, it could go one way or the other. I know that even if it goes the bad way, everything's going to be safe and under control, you know? And obviously the types of dogs that we put her with to do this is important and a big piece of the puzzle for it being successful as well, because you can see how both of them are like very go with the flow, nothing's really bothering them type of thing. And that's really important, because as you're trying to get her more comfortable socially, if you put her with a dog who also isn't very well versed in dog communication either, then you can have them both miscommunicating with each other, and then you have a big issue. Whereas like these dogs are both extremely social and communicate really well. And so Waffles can kind of be like, okay, she's just trying to figure this out, and be able to give her a little bit of grace in some areas and not really take anything personally, really.
She's weird about me putting like the slip lead or getting her collar off.
I know, Waffles is like, what is going on? You kind of look like Vera, but you also don't. And so if she gets too pushy and too rude, he might give her a correction, or he might growl or snap at her or something, which will be good to see how she responds to being corrected by another dog. Because sometimes they'll take that correction and then they'll retaliate and kind of start a little bit of a tiff. And obviously if that happens, I'll just correct her for it. But ideally, we'd like to see her get corrected and back off and learn like, okay, I need to respect that boundary. They're not into it. Yep.
That's why you were saying like what dog you're introducing her to at the
Yes.
stages is important.
Yes.
It's one that's more
Yeah, you don't want to necessarily start right off the bat with a dog who is like more grumpy. You know what I mean? Because then you don't allow her any room to like try to learn, okay, what can I do, what can't I do type of thing. Waffles is a pretty good one for this type of stuff, because he's very tolerant, but when he's had enough, he's like very good at giving a nice firm correction and setting boundaries and stuff as well. So far, I see a dog who just doesn't really know what to do. And that was probably a lot of what was contributing to the craziness that you were getting when she saw dogs was just a mixture of what are dogs, what do I do with them, and then the inability to be able to like try, you know, because of the boundaries and the leashes and stuff like that. So I think that doing more socialization like this is actually going to benefit a lot of the leash reactivity as well, because it removes the mystery of dogs, you know.
And like you said, like frustration that's based upon like not being able to go up and say hi.
Exactly. So there, he finally gave a correction, and she actually responded really well to it. I think it surprised her. But it's really good that she took that correction instead of being surprised and then nervous and then retaliating. You know what I mean? Like being triggered by it. She was like, oh, okay, I will just take a step back then. Because sometimes that can be the downfall of pits and pit mixes, is they tend to be attracted to conflict. You know, they're just very high intensity dog breeds. With the terrier in them, they like conflict and being confrontational and all of that kind of stuff and high intensity. So sometimes they can be bad at being corrected. You know, they'll see that energy and then they just want to like go right back at it a little bit. And that doesn't make them bad dogs by any means. That's just typically a part of their genetics. And so it's important to be aware of if you own a dog of that breed, to just be mindful of a lot of times when you're socializing them. How did you, what did you like envision would happen the first time we did this? Did you have any like thoughts or guesses?
Yeah, I mean, I was really curious about how much of it was the leash, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Like how much when she's actually put in the situation where there's nothing holding her between her and another dog, how she would react.
Yeah.
I think, so we had tried this somewhat, kind of the same thing in my parents' backyard with their dog, right, with the batter, with the muzzle and just kind of letting him go.
Yeah.
And at first they were chasing each other around and it seemed like, okay, like they're playing, you know?
Yeah.
And then the other dog was, my parents' dog was like, I set a boundary, like, all right, that's too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Lady started just, because she couldn't, because the muzzle, she couldn't use her mouth, so she started scratching.
Got it.
But my parents
So kind of what I was describing a little bit.
Yep, totally, taking that correction the wrong way.
Yep.
But she, we also did it in my parents' backyard, which was like, you know, that where that dog lives. You know
Sure. Oh yeah.
And that dog was also being super submissive, so.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't.
Well, and I also think too that you think about, obviously, like we did, the first part of this session was a lot of like boundaries and expectations and holding her accountable for even just her obedience and stuff. And then we put her in with dogs, so she was already in more of a compliant mindset. Right. You know what I mean? Where she understands now that like there are consequences for behaviors. Whereas I would assume, obviously, when you did that with your parents' dog, like that was pre-training. And so she didn't really have that relationship that she has now, where she's like, oh, like there is a higher authority that can tell me what to do and what not to do. So that could have affected how that went as well. Because we've been working so much with just her overall arousal levels being around dogs in general, where she didn't really have that prior.
She is though, she's back around.
She is? It's hard to ignore him. The reason, and I didn't explain it, but the reason why we ignore is because one, if you're interacting with the dogs, it actually detracts from the entire purpose, which is for them to interact with each other, because then they just want to interact with you. And because we try to remove anything that creates competition. So the biggest resources that dogs will fight over is human affection, food, and toys. So if you take all of those out of the equation, the likelihood you're going to have issues is just going to drastically decrease at that point. You'll notice she's like really into the chase type thing. That's, again, pretty indicative of like the terrier aspect. They like to have that chase instinct. The trouble that you can sometimes run into, which may have been what happened at your parents' house too, is that as they're in that chase mode, their brain flips from like playing into that primitive prey mode where they chase and then they start getting real mouthy. And then that could cause the other dog to correct and be like, hey, I'm not into it. And then they're already in that like, I need to accomplish what I'm doing type of thing, like hunt mode type stuff. And so again, that's just something that's just genetically hardwired in them sometimes, so that you have to be cautious of, especially because if the goal is ideally being able to get her around a small dog to live, you know what I mean? That even escalates a little bit more as far as that danger realm of her flipping to prey mode very easily.
Like seeing that correction as like an obstacle in the way of what we're doing.
Exactly. And again, it fuels, because of how they're genetically wired to overcome and win, it's almost like they like it. You know what I mean? They're like, yes, I'm gonna finish this fight basically to get to what I want. And that's what makes them so good at doing what they were intentionally bred to do. You know what I mean? But that's also what can make them a lot more difficult to socialize, because you're playing with that fine line of like primitive genetics and the safety of all the other animals that are around and everything too. So because obviously, like I said, your goal is that she cohabitates with another dog, and especially one with a drastic size difference. When we're socializing her and she's like learning how to take other dogs' cues and stuff like that, we are going to be a little bit more firm about making sure she's very respectful of those cues, because the room for error in your situation is going to be like very thin. Yeah. The dichotomy you'll have there is that you have a dog who can be triggered by prey, right? And then you have a small dog. The thing with small dogs is that when they're fearful or they're nervous, they behave like prey because they scream and they run and they do all of that. And so that can very easily then make it even worse in that situation. So, but all in all, I mean, I think this was super productive. I think this was awesome. She did really, really well.
Yeah.